Hey folks, BlackCross here, and welcome to another discussion video. It's been a while since I've actually done one of these discussion videos, but the reason why I actually want to bring this up, and it's actually one of the most important questions that I think I'll be putting out for like this year, and I might be doing a double take on myself later on, but probably on towards next year. And the biggest question is the PS5 worth it? Now, that subject is going to be a mixed topic for multiple people, depending on who you are. But for the genuine audience who don't even remotely have a PS5, that's actually a question that needs to be asked. Because, you know, do you really want to go out of your way and hardcorely invest time and effort just to get a PS5? You know, is it even worth it? And that question is it's going to be different for each individual person, because what I feel like people aren't doing right now is actually giving out the straight facts. And those facts are very important depending on who that genuine person is. I wanted to bring this subject up, originally I wanted to bring this subject up towards like its full 1-year anniversary of the PlayStation 5's official release. But after the State of Play PlayStation 5 showcase that we had, I feel like now is the best time as any to go ahead and talk about this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first talk about the showcase, and then give my overall thoughts and opinions on the showcase itself as to like games that I'm truly and dearly hyped for. And then we'll talk about the PlayStation 5 itself. So one of the things that was showcased on this PlayStation 5 showcase was that, you know, there was a whole bunch of games that they were going to be developing, most of which won't be released until next year at the very least. Now, what they did showcase, some of them was very interesting, one of which I was actually surprised actually got showcased at this at the event. And the reason why I say it surprised me is because technically this is a Korean company that made this game, known as Project E. It's basically a hack and slash game, sort of like that of like, I want to say like Devil May Cry, and even that of Bayonetta and stuff. But for the most part, it looks really good, it looks really polished and stuff, and I think because of Sony, they were like invested with how it looks and stuff, and so they were like, hey, let's get fully invested with the showcase with this one. And I was kind of like, I'm glad that they're finally letting other corporations get involved, and not just like American / UK / Japan. I feel like other companies have the potential, but it seems like they only want to try to find games that are mostly AAA titled. I felt like this was a good sign to see that they're not just looking in the key areas, they're also looking in other areas that have potential as well, and if they show interest, then that's good, in my personal opinion. Not much else really to talk about, except for like, say for example, towards the end, being that of Wolverine and Spider-Man 2. First and foremost, I was actually kind of surprised that they actually had enough to do a Spider-Man 2, especially after the Miles Morales expansion release, technically, and I was kind of like very surprised on that. But most importantly, to see Wolverine, so both Spider-Man and Wolverine, both being developed by Insomniac, which is kind of, it's kind of impressive. I was actually surprised to see that Wolverine is being developed, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, Wolverine, that's going to be pretty interesting, but then whenever I had to take a double take, because people were saying, oh, Insomniac's working on both Wolverine and Spider-Man 2. Insomniac is killing it, and it's like, wait, Insomniac's working on Wolverine as well? So it was kind of a shock. It's going to be interesting to see how Wolverine's going to turn out. I still have yet to have played the Spider-Man game that was released, so that's kind of on pause for the moment, but hopefully maybe I might get interest enough to want to play that, and then by then this game will also be released as well. And then surprisingly, very surprisingly actually, God of War Ragnarok. Didn't think it was actually going to get announced. Apparently, according to most people, it was supposed to be scheduled to be released this year. Obviously, with COVID, that couldn't happen, but I was actually very surprised that they even remotely talk about the game. And since they first talked about it, my excitement for God of War Ragnarok which was absolutely zero. I know people are going to be angry about me for that, but it was absolutely zero even after playing God of War 2018, which, can we just call it God of War 4, please? Can we just call it that? Because it's kind of getting annoying just calling it God of War, and for the majority of the audience, people are going to think the PS2 version rather than this version. But anyway, after I played that game and everything like that, I was like, I did enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it better than God of War, for that matter, but I did enjoy it enough to say, oh yeah, this is well deserving, in my personal opinion, of a good game. So I was like, yeah, whenever Ragnarok gets done and everything like that, I'll look into getting it eventually, but not right off the back. But since its showcase, I have actually grown more and more excited for Ragnarok. It actually looks really good. It's actually getting better and better the more I think about it. The biggest thing I'm hoping for is that they actually kind of expand on the story. Now, obviously they're going to do more than that, but I mean, you know, from where the first one, to me, I feel like the first one, the previous one rather, didn't do that much in terms of story. It kind of felt like, you know, we were kind of fighting the same enemy, even though we did fight two other guys. We fought pretty much the same guy upwards to like 2 or 3 times, and it kind of felt like we wasn't really progressing that far. And then by the time it finally ended, you know, it was kind of like, yeah, this is where Ragnarok's going to continue. And it's like, oh, okay. And then we see the trailer for Ragnarok, and it's like, hopefully this will continue on past the ideal concept of them fighting Thor. Hopefully this will continue past that, because if it does continue after this, where it's like, oh yeah, the next game you'll be fighting Odin and stuff, and it's like, no, I would rather just cut on to the very end of the game and fight Odin in this one as well, and not just be Thor and that, because Ragnarok is basically the end, technically, when you think about it. So why would you continue after Ragnarok? But that's just me, personally. I'm sure there are other games that people are going to be asking me about and stuff later on, but personally, those are the games that kind of peek up in my mind of, like, games that I'm like, oh, this actually looks good, this sounds interesting, this could definitely be a potential, like, day one, maybe, you know, stuff like that. But that's just it. Are they day one pickups? You know what I mean? And the quick answer is probably a yes, but not really, because if we're based it on the ideal that these games are going to be exclusive to the PS5, then we would have to say maybe they are worth it. But since most of them won't be released until next year, then it's obvious to say that, yeah, it's going to be a little bit before, you know, people be like, yeah, getting the PS5 now, type thing. Which relates to my main topic that I'm getting back to, and that is it worth getting a PS5? You know, is it even worth it? Now, before anyone asks the question, yes, we're all aware of the fact that the games look gorgeous on the PS5, but that's if you have like a 4K television. Now, if you don't have one, I mean, you can still play the PS5 on your normal flat screen TV and stuff like that, so long as you have an HDMI connection, you can still play it. It's not a big deal. So it's like, to me, I feel like, you know, that's like a big selling point. So it's like, if you have a television and you're planning on upgrading to a 4K television, the PS5 will take advantage of that enhancement and will take it into addition, you know. Because even though the PS5, in terms of performance, will enhance the games, it's not that major unless you have a 4K television. I feel like people aren't getting that information technically in the overall concept. Now, the second thing to take note on is that faster load times. We are seeing systems now being made with the better performance, because unlike with the Nintendo Switch, the PS4 and the Xbox One both have better processing power. So in other words, they can load in better textures, they can load in a lot faster times than what the Nintendo Switch could do. You know, the only thing you're sacrificing for the Nintendo Switch is that graphical and performance for it to be scaled down to be fitted into a cartridge that will work with the Nintendo Switch performance. Whereas the actual consoles, like the PS4 and Xbox One, they are better performance in some way. With the PS5 and the Series X, they are pushed beyond normal boundaries. They are literally pushed to the specs of today's gaming PC specs. So it's like, yeah, they're supposed to take on the full performance. So in terms of performance, it's actually a key feature that people are loving, you know, the fact that you can load in the game almost instantaneously. You can pretty much start the game right off the back. You can warp between places and the load times are like almost 0 seconds. So it's like, yeah, those performances are very key when it comes to selling the system and stuff. And that's where I think future console generations are going to continue from here on out, is that it's no longer about the graphical improvement, but rather the system's performance itself. Because even though the PS4 is a good system, there are some improvements that can be made, especially when you include games like The Witcher 3 or Bloodborne and stuff of that nature. Games like that, performance is important. Graphical detailing is second, but performance in this gameplay, performance in how it runs is the key essential, because if for some reason the game frame rate is so downright low, then graphical detailing no longer keys into a factor. What should factor is how the movement of the character flows, how everything functions, and if it doesn't, then you kind of wasted your time and you should have concentrated more on the performance rather than the quality. But that's just what I feel it is. So, with that being said, the biggest question on that, of course, is the PS5 worth it? For me, the answer is actually no. I don't think it's worth it right now. And I don't think it's worth it when we move on to 2022, because there's been news articles stating that there will still be a PS5 shortage going into 2022. And I can believe that. I can believe that because there are people right now having trouble trying to get into jobs. There are people trying to keep their jobs, hang on their jobs, but they're not able to because, well, number one, they're getting sick all the time. And number two, obviously it takes a lot of criteria, so a lot of different specs in order for you to work in such areas like these facilities that put together the chips, that put together the fans and all this electrical stuff in order to make the parts just to make the system. So it's like, to me, I feel like we will be seeing the shortage continue on to 2022. And even more so because of these scalpers that keep buying up the systems and then turning around and flipping it for double the price. I swear, this is the most disgusting thing I'll ever see in my entire life, is to know that this is still a thing even after a year. But I know people are going to be asking, but aren't there games released for the PS5 that you can get exclusively for it? And the answer is yes, there is, just not a large variety like people are bragging, you know? Like, people are saying oh yeah, Miles Morales is on there, Sackboy, and stuff like that, and I'm like, are you not doing your research? They are not exclusives. They are also available for the PS4. Horizon Forbidden West will be available for the PS4 as well. All these other games, Kena, Bridge of Spirits, will also be available for the PS4. And it's like, people, do your research. Do your research and look into whether or not they are strictly exclusives. They're not. And it's like, the only exclusives that I know right off the back that are exclusives, that, pertain in my area of gaming that I want to get into, are Demon's Souls Remake, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and then Returnal. After that, there's nothing else. Now, of course, people who want other games aside from those will also say, well, isn't there a Call of Duty game that was available for the PS5 only? The answer is, technically, yes, there was one. But from what I've also heard, there was supposedly, now this is a rumor, this isn't confirmed, but supposedly college football games are actually making a return, but they're only going to be PS5 exclusives only. As of right now, it is being developed, but whether or not if it will actually see the release before someone does a cease and desist, because technically there's a whole thing on that one. If you don't know, check that out. But yeah, it's like there's not very many exclusives to the PS5. All the games that you would think would be exclusive, like Forbidden West and Kena Bridge of Spirits, are actually going to be on the PS4 as well. So it's like, yeah, it's like you don't have to rush to get the PS5, thankfully. There's like 2 or 3 that you might miss out, but if that's not your big criteria level, then it's not that important. You can still wait on a PS5 and still get the majority of games that you're mostly hyped for. And so if this continues on towards 2022, like Project Eve being available for PS4 and PS5, and if for some reason God of War will be released next year, God of War could see a potential release for both PS4 and 5. If that was the case, if they don't shrink down on more exclusives for the PS5 system. But of course, naturally they would want to keep their audience happy. They might try to gear towards the fact that, oh hey, it will also be available for the PS4, but, you can upgrade it to the PS5 when you get one. And I feel like that to me is an important selling point when you do that. If you make that selling point crucial, then it's good. Now, of course, some people are going to be questioning this, but allow me to say this right now. There was an issue that we had going on with Horizon Forbidden West. And it was an issue that, unfortunately, kind of sprung into, I suppose you could say, a debacle. Where, apparently, whenever Horizon Forbidden West was fixing to be released and stuff like that, apparently they were saying that the Horizon Forbidden West will not be upgradable with the PS5 expansion. And it's like, wait, I'm confused. What are you talking about? So I don't understand what was going on in that department. I don't understand what was happening right in there. But as of right now, that is cleared up. It's now been changed. But it's been changed for the different. For example, when the PS5 first got released, any game that you had that was released for the PS4 that can be upscaled to PS5 will get more of a free update to where it can be upscaled to PS5. Now, Horizon Forbidden West has been that exception where, yes, it can be upscaled to the PS5, but you have to pay an additional $10 just to experience that. And to me, that actually works well. Now, I know some people are going to be mixed on that part, but let me explain. It takes money. It takes a lot of money to enhance a quality in product. It takes a lot of money just to upscale it, And if you're going to take that time and effort to make a game for both consoles, to where, number one, graphically it will be playable in that corresponding system. And number two, it is a lot of effort. It is a lot of effort to do that. So it makes sense to have that extra additional $10 for the game itself. To me, it makes sense. And it should be a choice. It should be a choice to the player. And if they want to upscale, then they can. If they feel like the game is okay on its own and they don't need that upscaling, then they don't have to pay for it. They can just still be able to play it on a single console and not have to switch back and forth. Because the fact that the PS5 is backwards compatible for virtually almost every PS4 game, then that is a good selling point. That's a reason enough for people to be like, oh, I want to get the PS5 because it will help the game play better on that system. And technically that is true. It does have a better processing power to where games will load better, and there will be a slightly better frame rate. Not an obvious improvement, but an improvement nonetheless, I think. So that's why people are like clamoring for a remaster of Bloodborne to be released where it's like 60 frames per second and stuff like that. Which, in all honesty, the game performance in Bloodborne is still really good in my personal opinion. It's still a great game to look at. You know, you got all the detailing that's added into the game and stuff, and it makes sense for why sometimes there's that little dip. It's not noticeable, but it is there. You know, it's like how Bloodborne is and stuff. It makes perfect sense. But I think the biggest thing is that, you know, should you feel tempted about getting a PS5, if you so wish it, if you feel like you want a PS5, then you can. But if you feel like you're strapped for cash, or you just feel like, yeah, it's going to be another year before the PS5 is going to be remotely even available, then just wait it out, you know? If you can wait it out for another year until it becomes virtually available on an easier scale, then do it, you know? Let that be the case. Don't just submit yourself into like trying to search for a PS5. Don't submit yourself into trying to get a PS5, because there will still be games available for the PS4. I'm sure as it gets closer to some of these games' official releases, we'll get more details on whether or not if these games are truly going to be exclusive to the PS5 or not, you know. And I feel like that's going to be something that needs to be talked about on a grander scale, is that will these games still be exclusive for PS5, or will they also be available for PS4? Because if these games that are fixing to come out next year are going to be exclusive to PS5, then that would make more sense as to why it's going to be more demanding to get a PS5. But if for some reason they are going to be available for PS4 as well, then that's not going to be a big issue for people who can't get a PS5 system. Instead, it's more or less of like, oh, okay, I can play the PlayStation 4 version, and when I get a PS5 version, I can decide if I want to pay an extra $10 to upscale it. And to me, that should be a choice. And hopefully this will continue to be improving, because overall, and this is just looking at it from my end, I don't know how it is for other people, but on my end, it seems like PS5 users, PS5 owners rather, are very toxic. I feel like it's a very toxic environment when you have a PS5 system, because apparently the bragging rights of better performance, enhanced graphic tone, and stuff of that nature, instead of actually being legitimately clear on like, oh yeah, if you don't have a PS5, that's fine, you know? And it's like, oh, you have to have a PS5. It's the best system out there. And it's like, but can you get one? And if for some reason, so far I have not seen it, but the day that I see a person say the phrase, you should have to pay $1,000 to get a PS5, do it, I'm gonna literally be like, this is it. This is where the internet has officially entered in toxic territory. I'm gonna draw the line here. Do not submit to that. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth the price. You should only have to pay for what the system originally cost, which is that of what, $499.99, $500? That should be your price range. If you can't get it for that price or less, then don't do it. It's not worth it. The reason why I brought this question into frame, and the reason why I'm talking about this, is because I've actually had a couple of people who usually ask me questions about the PS5 and stuff like that, and they were having trouble getting the PS5. And so some of them have actually asked me, do I think it's worth getting a PS5? And at first I was hesitant, but then I was like, no, be honest about it, you know, just tell them right up. And it's like, right now, it's not really worth it to get a PS5. And again, I may take back what I say right now, but when we go on to 2022, it may still not be worth it to get a PS5 until Sony can resolve this problem of not having enough systems available, and until we can get this scalper situation controlled and stuff, somehow or another, then it's not worth it right now. It's not worth getting a PS5. So it's like, don't break your bank. Don't stress over it. There will still be games a release for the PS4. So it's like, yeah, just be patient. We'll get through this. And it's like, there'll still be plenty of games. And I'm sure, I'm going to say this right now, but I'm sure you're like me. You probably have a good 100 or so games in your library that you haven't even touched. you haven't even remotely tried playing them, you know? And some of them aren't even short games. Some of them are actually legitimately longer, like RPGs and stuff. So they will take up your time. So it's like, if you're not in a desperate need to play Demon's Souls Remake or Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart or stuff like that, then it's okay. It's okay to wait it out. Anyway, guys, this is all that I wanted to say. This has actually been a subject that I've been wanting to talk about. I just didn't know how I wanted to bring it out, you know. I didn't know how I wanted to explain it to everybody, especially to those, even if they have a PS5, you know? And if you got a PS5, that's cool. That means you're technically getting this full experience that the game is going to be built upon, you know? You're getting the full experience. But for people who aren't able to even remotely get a PS5, this should be an informative video of like, hey, do I need to get a PS5? Do I need to try to, like, set up a thing to where I look up every single website virtually available to see if I can't even get a PS5? Is there a possible way? Could I do it? And it's like, you shouldn't have to stress like that. You shouldn't have to check every single day to see if, oh, they've restocked on a PS5. Let's see if I can get set up for a waiting list or something like that. And you know what? That's another thing that I want to talk about too. I am surprised that Sony has not developed something like that. I guess the reason why is because of scalpers, probably. But I'm surprised that they didn't set up like a waiting list of like, hey, people who want to purchase PS5, submit a certain amount of information, so on and so forth, you know, legitimate information, you know, like, hey, are you a real person and stuff like that, and not just a bot, you know. Have it set to where you could be put on a waiting list, get an email later on saying, hey, we've got some in stock, are you still interested in buying a PS5? And then your legitimate question is, yes, I want to purchase a PS5. You'll automatically submit to a waiting list checkout to where it will either automatically register as an order, or you will be automatically put to a waiting list for like the next batch that gets released. I am surprised that Sony has not done that officially. The fact that you can go on their official website and it still states that they are out of stock. Not a waiting list, not a pre-order set, but out of stock. The fact that Sony has not developed something to make it easier for consumers to get sincerely worries me. The fact that they have not done something like that. More so, the fact that they haven't done anything for the PlayStation 2 games digitally or whatever. They haven't done anything to help expand that. But that's just me, I guess. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you guys later.